Hello, and welcome to the RIB CCS Future Now Virtual Conference. My name is Rob Jones, partner at B2B Connect, and I'll be your host today. Over the next few hours, we have an agenda packed with global industry experts who will discuss different aspects of the digitalisation and digital transformation of the construction industry. Their thoughts, advice, and insight may come from slightly different perspectives, but all, we hope, will stimulate discussion. To that end, we encourage you to ask questions. These can be typed into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please keep them brief, and we'll get to them at the end of each session. Before I hand over to our first speaker, I want to highlight the competition that's being run today. The competition gives you the opportunity to win a lifetime user license for RIB CCS's estimating, planning and project control software called Candy. To enter, visit ribccsfuturenow.com and fill in the form. We'll also have a QR code show on some screens during the broadcast or during the webinar. You can use that as well if you want to get into the competition. So we start today with Andrew Scudder, CEO of RIB CCS. In a period where companies are having to rapidly learn how to communicate and collaborate digitally, he is going to set the scene for our virtual conference. Andrew has 25 years of international business experience and management consulting experience within the engineering and construction, industrial, automotive, media, and food and beverage industries. And he's worked across a number of companies, including A.T. Kearney, Mitsui & Co, and Murray & Roberts. So Andrew, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Rob, and it really is a great pleasure for us to be hosting this event today. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today at our first Future Now Virtual Conference. And today we have an audience and speakers from around the globe. And this is thanks to the mass adoption of digital technology like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, which has really transformed the way we work, we engage, and we collaborate as in the place of work. And so today is really about sharing that knowledge with you and how engineering and construction industry. As you may know, it is one of the least digitized industries in the world and one of the industries that has had the least growth in terms of productivity in the industry. And we hope that today we can share with you some really informative and thought-provoking messages from a great panel of speakers across today. So to start with, I'd like to share our experiences of RIB-CCS, of our transformation during this COVID-19 crisis that has beset the entire world. And during the course of 2020, there have been 4 themes that have emerged in this landscape for us as a business. And the first is rebrand, engage, support, and digitize. And I'd like to share these with you because they're setting the tone for us and our future success as a business. So to start with, RIB CCS was acquired by RIB Software in May this year. And this led to the rebranding of CCS to become RIB CCS. And our partnership with RIB is a key part of future-proofing our business. And it means a wealth of opportunity for our business in ensuring our continued growth and our business sustainability. One of the key opportunities that we've identified as part of this partnership is we are now part of a platform strategy play. Construction technology and software providers are evolving very quickly, and there are essentially 2 categories of players that are emerging in the industry. The first of those that are offering task-specific tools to deliver a specific functionality in the construction environment. The second are build and operate phases of the construction built environment. And RIB is a leader in this platform play with their RIB M2 platform. Now, M2 is an end-to-end 5D BIM construction cloud solution that connects all the people and stakeholders on a project, both internally in your organization, as well as with your clients, your suppliers, and your subcontractors. And it connects your people, the processes, and the data within platform, and one access and one view of all your data in your organization. And data, as we know, is the future currency of all business. Employees are incredibly important, but data is really what leverages an organization to have greater insights into their business. And it's that in that context that we believe that a platform strategy is really the future of a more efficient, a more productive, a more sustainable industry. And we're really pleased as RIB CCS to be part of the journey of bringing a platform strategy to the industry. One of the key objectives of our rebrand was to clearly show that we are now one with RIB, and that we are one RIB family running together with a common mission to digitally transform the engineering and construction industry to shape the future for generations to come. And not only are we part of the RIB group, but RIB joined the Schneider Electric group in July this year, and we're very pleased to have Mark Nezet, a Senior Vice President at Schneider Electric, joining us today. And Schneider Electric's mission is to be our client's digital partner for sustainability and efficiency. So as you can see, there's a significant alignment in mission between Schneider Electric, RIB, and RIB CCS as your digital partner. The video on the right of the screen that you've seen features the employees of RIB CCS, and it's a wonderful reflection of a really well-received rebranding of our organization. And we've been really delighted with the level of engagement from both our employees and our clients to this new brand. And I think it really demonstrates that we've got a wonderful future ahead of us and a wonderful brand that underpins that. The second theme that emerged for us was engage. And at the heart of RIB CCS are our employees. And we this year really ramped up our level of engagement with our employees. And this was really to manage the huge amount of uncertainty that they were facing as a consequence of COVID and all the lockdowns and the future sustainability of businesses, and also to enhance our engagement and productivity of our employees. And so we engaged in various things to ramp up that level of engagement. I'll just like to highlight a few of those. So the first one was that our HR team have been amazing in reaching out to each and every one of our employees with personal, informal calls to our employees, to do a check-in on our employees, to see how they're doing, to understand what are their fears, what are their concerns, and to try and help allay those fears. And I think that was a fundamental change in the way that we've done HR, deep care and living that value of care. All our employees during this period have moved to working from home, and they've done so really successfully. And we were able to support many of them with various aspects of making that a success, by providing them with data, by providing them with backup solutions so that they could continue to work and that they could continue to support you, our clients, with the services that you're accustomed to. The other thing that we did is we introduced a lot of fun digital events to bring our teams together. Working remotely can be a very lonely place. And so we brought all our teams together on numerous occasions through digital fun events to create a sense of togetherness and together with being. And then finally, to highlight is the amount of communication we've had has been much better than in the past. And I stepped up my own level of communication with our team through letters and transparent town halls where we shared as much information as we could about the status of our organization and the state of where things were going. And I think that level of transparency is really important to allay fears and to make people really committed to the cause of delivering service to our clients. The third theme that has emerged is that of support. And we as a business generate about 75% of our revenue from subscription type revenue. And as a consequence of that, it's really critical that we empathize with and support our employees during these difficult times. And so we've stepped up our level of communication with our clients to communicate more about we're still in business, we're still doing well, and we're here to support you. And I think that gave comfort to our clients because they rely very heavily on our solutions to deliver their services to their clients. So it was really important for us to let them know that we're in a good space and we're here to help them. The other ways that we demonstrated care and empathy was by issuing temporary licenses. Many of our clients didn't have all the digital means to enable a digital transformation as smoothly. And so we issued additional licenses to clients so that they could be effective remotely. And I hope that that has had an impact in your business and helped you through this process. And of course, many of our clients have really undergone some stressful financial times. And so where we were able to extend payment terms to those clients. And again, I trust that that has had some impact in those organizations. But finally, in terms of supporting our clients, well, it was really critical for us to make sure that we continue to offer our well-renowned service to our clients. And that was through moving to a digital means as quickly as possible and being available to our clients through these digital means. And this brings me on to the final theme that we speak about in our business, and that is about to digitize. And so we as a business have pivoted 100% to remote working. And it's been really interesting to see how our efficiency and our productivity has been increased as this happened. And it really is testimony to the dedication and commitment of our team members. But we did also adopt many new digital solutions to enable that transformation. And so we've, I guess, adopted a dual strategy, one of adopting platform technologies and also adopting some tools. And so from a platform technology perspective, solution is becoming more and more the platform that underpins our relationship with our clients. And as you can see on the screen, we now use it in our marketing and sales environment, firstly in a sales environment from our CRM solution, tracking our sales and our pipeline, to also now including marketing, where we're able to monitor our digital marketing efforts that are going out there, not only to monitor what we're putting out there, but to measure the effect of that digital marketing. And then once we bring clients into our organization, we're now extending that to our services, to our implementation and support. So our clients are now accessing help centers in our software where they can click and find articles on how to do a certain piece of functionality within that software. They're also able to log queries and calls in that software. And that now is leading straight back into our support teams and into our development teams, so that we now as an organization, through a platform strategy, have one view of the world. As you can see, there's some other interesting tools that we've adopted to make your lives easy as well. And if you think about signing lots and lots of support agreements or license agreements for Candy, we're digitizing those processes through the likes of software like Impression. We're digitizing our demonstration management through an online booking system like Calendly. So a lot of this is aimed at improving your experience with us, but also we're doing it to enhance our business processes, as you can see in our development space where we're adopting new technology. And cloud strategies is, believe it or not, we as an organization weren't a fully cloud strategy business before we entered into COVID. We still had servers online, but in our offices. Now we've pivoted those 100% to a cloud environment, and we're seeing that as a very key theme into the future going forward. So those are the four themes that have stood out for us during this period of time. And I think you will see that not only are we seeing digital transformation in the construction industry, we've seen it in all industries. And there's this rapid adoption of technology in all facets of businesses. And we as an organization, together with our partner RIB and Schneider Electric, really want to be your partner of choice in terms of your digital transformation strategy. And so thank you for your attention. And I'm sure you can, and thank you also for your ongoing support of our organization. Without you as our clients, we would not exist. And so we're really proud to have a wonderful body of clients who we can continue to support. So I trust that you find the rest of the day to be informative, and I certainly hope that it goes smoothly. But if not, please bear with us. We are running a live event today, and we're doing it live because there's so many recorded webinars. We wanted to bring a personal touch to this event today, and hence bringing it in a live format. So again, thank you very much for your presence today, and I certainly hope you have a wonderful day. And back over to you, Rob.
And thank you, Andrew, as well. So now we move on to our next speaker, which is Mark Nezet. Now, Mark is Senior Vice President for Energy Management Software Transformation at Schneider Electric. Mark has enjoyed an international career that has included living and working in countries such as Finland, Turkey, Sweden. In 2004, he joined Schneider in Russia and has held various senior positions in different countries since then. Mark is going to discuss the key opportunities and challenges around software for efficient and sustainable building and construction. Mark.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm very pleased to be with you today live, and that's going to be an exciting time, hopefully, that we'll have together. Very pleased as well, Andrew, to have the opportunity to share a few insights on the vision we have today at Schneider Electric on let's say construction and building efficiency. So I'll start probably by sharing with you something that we would all agree. We could think that the current context around COVID-19 might have changed the true priority or the true north that we have driving efficiency and decarbonization. Finally not. We believe still the next wave that we have to understand, the big tsunami that we are potentially facing together, is, let's say, the climate change impact. And the good news is that we are not part of the problem, we are part of the solution. What does it mean being part of the solution? It means that the construction industry represents such large part of the economy in terms of GDP, in terms of world employment, but as well in terms of emissions of carbon through both building and construction, that we have no other choice than to reinvent ourselves, take decision towards not only efficiency for the sake of efficiency, but efficiency for the sake of climate change mitigation. What we used to say today in our vision is that the opportunity today for the construction and the building environment is there. But there is but indecision is a thief of the opportunity. We face all together actually two very strong dilemmas or challenges that we need to address. On the left side, you get a few data points on the climate change situation and the way we address it collectively. you can see that 1/3 of the world today is said to be skeptical about climate change. We noticed that this year the CO2 emission reduction actually is a lot linked to the different lockdown we get in different countries. It's a lot attached to the context of COVID-19, but it's not attached to structural changes and the structural, let's say, trajectory changes. Last but not least, there is a big part of the population that is not necessarily thinking 30, 40, 50 years ahead of us, but which is more fighting for already getting a better condition of living today, getting access to energy, access to telecommunications, and so on and so forth, and they are not subject to the climate change message today. On the right side, we are all, I mean, in that industry, and we are all acknowledging that actually the building industry is one of the least digitized industry, ranked 21st among 22 in the industries. We can see as well that the efficiency gains on the construction industry, if we would compare to many other industries that went for more automation, more productivity thanks to digitization, the building industry, the construction industry lags behind. We can see as well that the attractivity and let's say the profitability of large construction companies is not among, let's say, the best in the world today. At Schneider Electric, as you know, we come from the physical world. We come from a world of electrical distribution equipment, from building automation and the temperature control and all those very important systems in a building that makes a building coming to life. That has been our life for many years. But we finally realized that today the physical world cannot give a full value of what it can do without software. And this explains a little bit this vision that we have that, and you are, each of you today on the call, software users. And actually the software empowers you to get the physical world more efficient and less carbonized. We really believe that the design is an important stage in full, let's say, symbiosis and harmony with the physical world to deliver compliance, efficiency, access to renewable energy from a design stage, and to also document and make conscious decision from the design stage on the carbon footprint of any facilities or infrastructure. And I'm sure you are, all of you, familiar that when you move later on from design to the costing, to the estimate, to the scheduling, you are all facing this situation as well. Do we estimate? Do we schedule? Do we plan? Do we build like we did 30 years ago? Or do we have to match a new physical world, which is a world of access to renewable energy, access to new codes and compliance in relation to a low carbon building footprint? So those are really dilemmas that you face today. And guess what? If you do not solve it today, we will never hand over a built world, to the operation and maintenance that will really give a built, let's say, an operated building and infrastructure landscape, having proper efficiency, a proper return on investment on the facility or infrastructure that was built, to give a proper and smart approach on asset management and space management. And last but not least, that would also integrate the circularity, the way to recycle materials, in other words, let's say, in other words, the end of life cycle of any buildings. So we are very attached at Schneider to that vision, which is to say we do not oppose the physical world to the digital world. We believe the digital world and the software is here to empower human professional to make the right decision to get the best possible operation, efficient operation in designing, building and operating facilities and infrastructure, but as well in driving a world that's going to be low carbon world. We have been very pleased to realize that that vision. Even if we come from the hardware, we decided to partner with a company that is really designing the future of the construction and planning processes. So we are very attached to the start of the collaboration with RIB, being absolutely convinced that the hardware world needs a smart estimate features, smart scheduling, as well having the right material management and waste management approach, having in mind that there will be no measurable carbon footprint of the build phase if we don't have an associated material management and waste management measurement. Last but not least, you'll get as well the smart supplier management and smart procurement that will help each of you in your daily work, not only on focusing on buying like we bought in the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years, but buying what will make the world decarbonized. We then realized that to serve this vision of efficiency and decarbonize, actually the future of construction seen from a hardware company would have a name. It would have a name, and that is M2 as a name. We looked as well and noticed, and that's an example of a country that is very dear to me, where I spent more than 10 years of my life, which is Russia. And you have here an example. I think it's from a city. I think it was a project in Siberia made by a large Finnish contractor who is having more than 2,000 users today on M2 platform. Another example of the strengths of M2 that we valued a lot as well, a supplier of energized infrastructure to them, meaning electrical distribution and so on and so forth, is a German railway. And we see that the adoption, the massive adoption by the German railway on linear project planning, building and operation is of course enhanced by the M2 access. What I wanted as well to share with you, and I'm sure all of you being in the construction sector, in the design, planning or building phase, you are all familiar with the necessity for us to help you to get the proper learning and to get the proper option to decide from in your daily work. And if we could say that on the pure design phase, the generative design will help us to build scenarios of different technical options, architectures that will be embedding renewable energies, that will be embedding the proper, let's say, insulation material, the best of technologies as well, to have a good thermal properties and thermal dimensioning of any facilities. We need to continue that game to have the right scenario and simulation supported for costing, scheduling associated to those technologies, and to have intuitively chat voice assistant, machine learning on massive different codes, standard libraries of pricing to support you to get the construction and the planning of the future. This image is a little bit of a visionary part, but it is for us a summary to say that as a hardware company, as a company that has as a purpose, a sense of togetherness, which is to deliver a sustainable world, we believe really in M2 as the future of construction. I will open the floor to a Q&A time together with you, just inviting you as well to explore a little bit more of what I said by not only visiting the M2 capabilities, but as well I would invite you to share and to discover on Schneider sustainability policy and the way we are absolutely attached to do our job on sustainability. I think Andrew, you were talking about the sense of togetherness. You were as well talking about the necessity in the COVID context to be emphasized with all of our audience. I would say that the decarbonization and the way to mitigate climate change within the building and construction area is also, let's say, an invite for us to empathize with the coming generation. And on the left side, you get an invite to look at one of the recent reports published by the World Economic Forum and the Boston Consulting Group that was giving a good quote and a good space to RIB M2 as let's say a control tower to decarbonize the build and the construction world. I hand over to questions, and we'll be happy to answer a few questions if we have.
Thank you, Mark. Just one question we do have is on the decarbonization side. Is this something that you're looking at for your own company as well as the products that you're, or the companies you're working with? Is this something that Schneider is looking at how they can decarbonize? Yeah, absolutely. And we have a commitment towards let's say not only be carbon neutral, but to be net zero emission as well for our building footprint, for our industrial operation, and as well end to end for our equipment once they are running in operation. And in order to have, I mean, that's a part of course, the credibility in living those values. The second piece of credibility that we go across, and I'm sure all of you face that today, that what is the readiness of the measurement, or what is the readiness of the data models to support that we are all making knowledgeable and let's say decision. You all know that today when we use a material, you have an embedded carbon already a footprint in the material you use. Are your data models ready to measure it? Second, when you're going to build the process in itself, the level of the rework, whatever, will also get a carbon footprint emission. Last but not least, in operations, you'll get as well a carbon emission during the operation of the building. So those three aspects, we are really living those values, living the purpose that we have by learning like you, forcing ourselves to structure this data model, forcing ourselves to be a role model that we do not measure only cost, we do not measure only technical property, but we measure as well the embodied carbon, the carbon in the build phase, and the carbon in operation phase. Okay, wonderful. Well, Mark, thank you very much for your time. We really do appreciate it. And thank you for your presentation. We now move on to our industry panel. Here, we will discuss in more detail and look in more detail at the digital transformation journey in construction. Our panelists will explore how they planned, executed, and either underwent or are undergoing their current transformations, providing real-world examples along the way. So we have joining us, hopefully as you can see on the screen, I'll be moderating this, and we have joining us Rakesh Raghuber. He is CEO at M&D Construction Group. Mark Hornet. Mark is a seasoned procurement systems and business process manager. Charles van Schalkwijk, Roads and Earthworks Division Financial Manager from RIB Group, and Thierry Abinada, Managing Director at Man Enterprise. So let me just unshare the slide. Okay, wonderful. Rakesh, I'm going to start with you. So if you could unmute yourself, please. What promoted you to start the digital transformation journey? Why did you think it was necessary for your company? And how do you feel it's helping you when you're dealing with your future plans around construction?
Rob, as you know, and as everyone knows, the construction space is extremely competitive and hasn't changed in the last few decades, maybe centuries. At M&D, we wanted to explore ways of being more competitive by eliminating risk, duplication of tasks, and to improve change management. We started our journey about 3 years ago, looking at what tools are available in the market to align with our vision of implementing an integrated system in our business. It has been a long and interesting experience, but we are now clear on what our needs are and what is the best solution for us. As an example, we've just appointed a VDC manager, which is a virtual design and construct manager, which I think is a new role for our business and the industry. And his role is to drive, to improve our projects by utilizing technology and making our clients' lives easier.
And Thierry, I think the same for you. You know, what prompted you to start the journey?
First of all, I read a lot about technology, and once I was reading about the CEO of Nokia, and he gave a statement that we didn't do anything wrong, but somewhat we've lost. And I've realized that even if you're doing the good things and you're working as productive as you are, and you have the best team, and you're following the business model, etc. However, you don't know when the industry will be disrupted, and you don't know when you lose. So you have to zoom out and have another look at the industry and how it's moving and how the business model is changing. And then I thought we should create a business improvement team within our industry, and this is how we did. And we chose as an ERP Build Smart, which is CCS ERP, and we start our digitization journey and to move later on into digitalization and business transformation. So this is why we started.
Did it take you a while to kind of get your head around that difference between digitizing and digitalization and digital transformation? Because these are three terms that people use quite a lot, and they all mean slightly different things, but can cause confusion.
Yes, digitization is moving from analog to digital, means that from paper to digital, even depending on the countries, but even having an invoice as digital. While digitalization is using software tools and digital tools to be more productive and change the way how you work, while digital transformation or business transformation is about changing the whole business model and the experience. It's kind of Uberization, like Uber. It's a completely different experience, or removing the middleman. So that's the main difference between them. Even sometimes if you follow a digital transformation, you might find another experience that might be an asymmetric competitor to you. For example, iTunes was able to remove Sony Music, but later on Spotify removed iTunes. So they created another experience different than iTunes. iTunes removed the middleman, who was Sony Music, between the artists and the consumers. And became the middleman, but Spotify changed the business model and the experience. So you have to always innovate, look how things are moving, especially in the industry. By the way, our industry started to see some new changing business model. For example, if you look at Catera in the United States, Catera is moving into modular construction. So it's going to remove the contractor and the designer and the consultant, because the client can go directly to a manufacturer and build their building. So he's kind of a symmetric competitor to the contractor, and they are creating the architectural engineering and construction platform, which one day might become the Android of the construction industry. And other industries are trying, like Autodesk.
Well, I mean, certainly you look at something like modular, that's going to bring a much more manufacturing and factory type processes into construction. It's going to mean that people have to plan and think much more upfront, because variation and change will be more difficult. And Mark, turning to you, now you've had quite a career in construction, I know. So when you're looking at these kind of changes, this digital transformation and the transformation really that Thierry alluded to, what kind of key points and milestones do you advise companies to make sure they're putting in place as they're starting to form that strategy?
From a management perspective, you need to know what holistic information you want to get out for a reporting function that's going to drive the business. You need to know who's going to own the project. Is it going to be at a board level? Is it senior management? Who will ensure that the project heads in the same direction as the company is moving? And who has that insight? So you need someone inside the business to drive the project and to coordinate and push it in the same direction as the
champion
company structure. That may be a senior person, or it may be somebody else who's just got a broad knowledge of the business. You may even bring somebody in from outside to do that, who's had experience in the past. But that person also needs to be able to form teams of champions from within the various departments. Okay. You also need to understand the business processes and how they interact with each other, how the information flows through the business. You know, what sort of documentation is used, what role it plays through the life cycle of the project. Because you'll be amazed at the amount of information that can be collected through a business, but it never actually does anything. It gets recorded, filed and forgotten, and it's the old analogy of rubbish in, rubbish out. And you also need to ensure that there's enough time and resources are given to the project. You need to put a timescale on it. But it needs to be realistic and achievable. And also you need to remember, most of the staff will be part of the project will also be doing their day jobs. So too short a time scale and the team will feel under pressure to complete, and too long and it will lose drive within the project.
Okay, so Charles, moving from what Mark has just said there about thinking about your timescales, thinking about who you should be involving, finding that champion, for yourself, what are the main benefits that you're starting to see from the transformation? How do you think it's benefiting your company?
Yeah, I think from the initial point of you have a disruption and you have a natural inkling to people almost going against this whole transformation and the project. But what we've noted is after a year or so, when everyone started taking ownership and they started feeling more included, so information was more readily available. And in fact, that resulted in more efficiency, quicker decision-making, better decision-making, and in the end, opportunities that previously was lost was you were able to realize it and measure it in the end.
And that's interesting, the measurable part, because again, that's something that often is an intangible that now you're saying you could actually measure. And did you find that helps your bottom line? Definitely,
because previously you had a project that ran and it was difficult to gather specific information, where if it's in a data format, and if you already have a reporting format, you can just extract it, manipulate it quicker. I'll use a very, very easy example. Our month reporting was done in a way with almost took 2 days from start to finish. After a year, it went down to 10 minutes, just because it went into a digital format where you extract, dump, boom, you have a report.
Okay, so moving, I mean, that's a very good real world example there. And Rukesh, moving back to you, did you start to see very quickly the ROI you were getting from your investment as you moved on with your digital transformation? And again, you know, are there tangible benefits you can talk about? You're muted.
I view technology as a deflationary tool, you know, where you're going to see the ROI. I mean, you're not going to be able to say, you know, we implemented this and this is exactly how much we got. It's more broad-based. Your ROI is going to be realized over time and in line with your goals, you know. But what's important, I think, is how you choose a software partner. I mean, we adopted an approach where we purchase software, you know, as a service. And when you choose a service provider, you basically say, you know, what is behind that company? Do they have the strength and the balance sheet and the will and investment to improve their software in line with the customer needs and the industry as a whole? I mean, as an example, we implemented BuildSmart, you know, 2 years ago. And our company has seen enormous benefit, you know, in the financial system. Our goal, our ultimate goal, I guess, is to get to a point where we only enter data once and we use this data across the company in some sort of platform or applications.
Okay, and actually it's interesting that you mentioned about finding the right partner, because certainly I've spoken to people who've said that that is so important, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you invest and then you don't have the support you require going, you know, when you're moving forwards and you're finding your way on this journey.
No, correct.
Thierry, now I know that you're in the process of implementing an ERP system at the moment. It's not finished. How have your early experiences been? How are you finding it's giving you a competitive edge at the point where you've got it to, you know, are you seeing some early benefits?
Yes, the experience, it's exceptional, the benefits we are seeing. First of all, why choosing the software, you know, in the construction industry, it's all about productivity. The more productive your labor are and the better you are in time management, the more money you will make and the more happy the client is. However, to do so, you need to measure productivity on a day-to-day basis to be able to change strategy quickly if you have a problem. And to do so, you need to collect data. And this is the power of BuildSmart and BSmart and CCS software, where we were able to measure the daily productivity labors and how many labors I have on a project and how they are performing, what are their man hours. Because I have the complete time attendance that is connected to the job costing, that is connected to the quantity in Candy, and to the HR model in BuildSmart. So this is really powerful to be able to measure the productivity on a day-to-day basis. This is one benefit. The other benefit is when you have all your systems and all your workflows and all your codes and structures and assets on one software, you can mobilize quickly to any project. So whenever you sign a project, you don't have to teach your employee how to perform the job. Already there's a system in place that creates disciplines and that they can adapt quickly and move on. So this is really important as well. These some of the benefits. There are many other benefits as well, of course.
Okay, and Mark, moving to you now. Again, we've heard about the journey. We've heard about looking for the benefits, making sure you understand, making sure you treat your data well, which is going to become increasingly critical. So when you're advising people, what are you seeing in terms of how companies take their staff, their employees on this journey so that they understand this is to benefit them? It's not, you're not trying to ease them out of the door. You're not trying to make their life more difficult. Actually, what you're trying to do is enhance the processes. And if people are reluctant, how do you advise to bring them along?
Yeah, any digital transformation should be seen as a toolbox for the teams really to carry out their roles. Shared information provides up-to-date information. it's something that the individual and the team can act on really in a timely manner, which then means it reduces the risk, which some people feel that they're out on a limb some days working on something and not understanding that something had already changed, and that was in somebody else's data silo somewhere else on a different spreadsheet. The day-to-day may change because a new system will ask them to do things in a different way, but they should then see that it become more productive, and also it will bring a team together. I said earlier about getting a team together of people who can champion the project. Sometimes you look for that person that's really, really unsure about doing the change, and you get them on board. Once they see the benefits, they can sometimes have a bigger influence on the team. And also training. Training is a huge part of bringing in any new system. Training the team, training the individuals. The training, it equips the individuals and it allows them to grow in confidence as they then see the new system come onto their desktops.
Okay, thank you. I can see we've got a few questions coming in, but before we turn to those, Charles, I just want to ask you, are you frequently, do you have this kind of approach where you're systematically almost reviewing your digital strategy, so you always make sure you're on the right path, updating bits that maybe aren't irrelevant, making sure you're focusing on the bits that where you're finding it is necessary and relevant?
Yeah, specifically with RIBEX, it's a very decentralized group. So as it's like 24 operating companies, 3 divisions, each division has its own strategy, and each company specifically will be in a different stage of that transformation. But at a divisional level, definitely we look at it and we try to get a synergy in order to have certain transformation, digital transformation in place. Currently, just one example is, especially with the lockdown in South Africa, we had a situation where it was full-blown audit by the external auditors, and we were able to provide 5 years worth of invoices and documentation that was digital, document management system that was digital. So in the past, that would have been an extremely difficult time, and it was still difficult, but it was less of a disruption.
Okay, I've got a question here, which it's to Rukesh, but I think actually it's a question that we can probably spread to other members of the panel as well, which is when you embarked on the search for tools to digitalize your construction operations, what were your target problem areas, and how did you identify which tools you needed to help solve those challenges? Rukesh?
Yeah, look, yeah, so I mean, for us, when you have a problem, you apply the 80-20 rule, okay? What are you going to do that's going to have the most impact? And I think in construction projects, change management is a major issue where a lot of money is made or lost in that process. Apart from the other data capturing and doing things once, for us that was a big problem, and we went out to have a look. What's available. There's Procore as a system. M2 as a system. We went and had a look at how other companies are solving. Someone mentioned Katera. I mean, for anyone that knows what Katera does, it's mind blowing. So. And we need to understand that as an industry, if we do not disrupt ourselves, someone else is going to come and do it for us. So, those are largely the problems that we were having, and we're trying to solve it. Again, coming back to saying, we want to be more competitive. How do we set ourselves apart from our competitors? And using technology, I believe, is an extremely important tool if applied correctly and buy-in from the employees in the company, we could have a major impact.
Thierry, I saw you unmute momentarily. Did you want to answer as well?
Yes, actually, I share the opinion of Rukesh. It's all about productivity. As I said before, the main driver is productivity. So data capturing is important, code instruction is important. However, I want to move forward towards that. For example, in the Middle East, we use the British system in measuring productivity. In the US, they go into what we call activity costing, like to build a column, it costs that much. While in Britain, they go into I've spent this amount of time as laborers, this amount of formwork, this quantity of concrete, this quantity of steel, which is kind of different. And I've realized these differences between the American softwares and the European softwares. So we had to choose CCS because they cover both actually, and you can measure both. Another area to look into it is the support of the software, if it's good or not. The vision of the software developer. Are they looking at the same direction you are? Are they willing to develop and to follow the industry improvements? That's it. And I think CCS and RIB software, and with their move towards Schneider Electric as well, I think it's an area where they are willing to invest, and they are really creating a vertical ERP systems and vertical tools that cater to the construction industry and the whole life cycle of the construction industry. I think these are important areas to look into. For example, I'm in contact with some CCS people to look into the last planner system and lean construction, which is an area as well important. And what tools do we need to cater to these needs? So thank you.
Okay, Thierry, let me keep you there, but I'm going to ask this question, final question to each of you individually, but I'll start with you, Thierry, as you're already here. For you, when you started, what would you, if somebody came to you and said, give me some advice, what would you consider the most important, that if you do nothing else, make sure you do this type of advice that organizations should think about to make sure they get to that successful end result?
Okay, first of all, you need to choose a person that is multidisciplinary and have knowledge area in finance, accounting, who can collect requirements, really requirements. Second of all, you need someone who can reduce the cultural shock or the cultural resistance that might happen, or the employees that you might face with the employees to adapt the software. So I think these are two major challenges that you would see in an industry that you need to cater for and mitigate. Second, you need to follow an inclusive leadership to maybe include in your meetings and in your vision the people on the ground, and empower them to let them feel that this is their baby, or this will make their life easier. So
okay, and Rukesh, yourself?
So just to maybe pick up a little bit, for us, it's quite simple. You have to involve as many people as practically possible when making the decision. Otherwise, you're not going to have buy-in, and it's going to be a failure. Okay,
thank you. Charles?
Well, for me, I agree with Thierry on the inclusive approach, but definitely you need to drive it from top management down. It shouldn't be a senior management thing. If you have a leader that's going to drive it, it's perfect. And then my first job when I started Robix was actually being appointed to implement an ERP system. And I did some reading up about it because I'm exactly that kind of guy that Thierry said, with the financial background, etc. And what it basically said is the guys who implement the financial system, it's their job to do it. They're the experts, they know what to do it. Leave them to do it and just assist them in order to ensure that the project will be a success in the end.
Okay. Mark, I think as you're answering, another question is coming that I think is interesting. So as you're answering that, also what somebody is asking is, during this transition, can it be a phased process?
When you're planning the whole thing, you need to plan for the dream. So look at the whole project. you can phase, but you need to be planning the whole project in one go. You'll be amazed at how when you get an all-encompassing system, that everything interlinks. And what you'll probably find when you phase it is that then all of a sudden you want that next part to come on board quicker than you thought. And then all of a sudden you want the next part to come on board. And then you get your teams that are saying, well, can't we have this as well? So actually, when you get the system coming through, yeah, you'll be amazed that actually your teams, your staff, I mean, you've got some amazingly talented people working for your companies, and for them to be able to grasp an all-in-one system which reduces risk for the business and gives you transparency across as well.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Really interesting. I think we got some very in-depth answers there, looking at the journey for digital transformation, who needs to be involved, what you need to think about, and how you go about it. And again, we heard some very early results there in terms of some of the benefits, you know, that makes it much more tangible when you're understanding and looking for some of the processes that you're looking into. We move now to our keynote address, titled very simply, Future Next, given by John Sarney, Knowledge Mercenary at John Sarney Inc. This presentation, well, it's not really a presentation. This discussion will look at how organizations can ensure they're agile and clear in purpose. John is the author of bestsellers such as What's Your Moonshot, Magnetize, and Foresight, and co-founder and chief exponential officer at the Future Self Academy, which is a platform that connects, as he says, the curious to leading thinkers. So, John, over to you.
Hello, Rob.
Hello there.
Wonderful
Hi.
to see you. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good.
So I'm going to stay in because you're going to give a very brief introduction, and then we'll do a Q&A together.
Right, great. Well, hello, everybody. Wonderful to be here. I've been listening to your chat for the last half an hour or so. I wanted to start off with two big ideas, and for us to really start to get to grips with those before we go into the rest of the talk and conversation. The first one is very much focused on our brains and us as individuals. And the second part that I want to discuss is about what's going on in the world, because I think both of them are really important for us to discuss and understand. The very first thing we must realize is that the world is under major fatigue. We are taking an incredible new type of stress onto our brains. Now, the way our brains work, the neuroplasticity that happens in our brains is that every time we get a task, we attach something called DPO to it: duration, path, and outcome. Every time we get into the car, we go on holiday, we have lunch, we know the duration of it, we know what's going to happen on the path, and we know what the outcome should be. And here we are in a world today where everything seems uncertain. Nobody knows what the duration of this process looks like. Nobody knows if we are halfway, nearly finished, nearly starting when it comes to COVID-19. And also none of us know what's going to happen on the path, and none of us know what the outcome is going to be. So there's this level of fatigue that all of us are under. And I think it's important for us to become aware of this fatigue, be more patient with ourselves and people around us while we try and figure out to get into a place of certainty again, if we ever really have another place of certainty. And also remember that this virus started off as a medical issue. It is now a socio-economic issue. It's a business issue. It's a restructuring and recalibrating of what we prioritize to buy, what we prioritize to do. And we're going to be coming out of this period of time totally changed, totally different, and rethinking what's most important and what we were doing in the old world that didn't work, that we can just leave there. So the first part is this internal process, and we'll dive deeper today into some of the tools that we could sort of practice when it comes to our mental states, because all of us are human at the end of the day, no matter what business you're in and what position you hold. These emotional things do take a lot of pressure on us. The second thing I want to touch on is how the world is changing in a broad stroke. You see, the world we come from is a complicated one. and the world we're moving into is a complex one. Now, what's the difference? There's a massive fundamental difference. You see, in the old world, I think it was Thierry who was saying that the construction industry hasn't changed for over 150 years. And we all know that it's a very solid way of doing things. And so we understand that in the old world, in the world pre-COVID, things were complicated. In other words, there was a linear line of innovation. And in a complicated world, what you had was patterns that repeated themselves. And because these patterns repeated themselves over and over and over, we could use tools like mathematics, accounting, Excel spreadsheets, and automation to be able to extrapolate the past into the future because we understood that these patterns repeated themselves. In the world we're moving into, the complex world, the fundamental difference is that there are patterns in the complex world, but they don't repeat themselves. We don't know what's coming. We have no idea. And that's why it's so complex and not complicated. And in the world of complexity, trying to use the old tools of mathematics, accounting, automation really will get you into a lot of trouble because those tools are all about economies of scale and mass efficiency. The world we're moving into requires economies of learning and robustness. Now, these are fundamentally different. Let me give you an example to land it for you. When you go onto a plane, and when you get to the airport, you put your suitcase onto the conveyor belt, and the suitcase gets to you on the plane in the most efficient, complicated manner. Now, I'm sure you've seen some videos about how those suitcases work behind the scenes. It is absolute chaos. There are so many suitcases going everywhere, but because of automation and because of the efficiency that they've created, we hardly have any people touching those suitcases, just at the end and maybe at the beginning. But really, those bags get to you in the most efficient way possible, as cheaply as possible, and really with no people involved. But the minute you get onto the plane, you're now not in a complicated world with patterns anymore. Now you're in a complex world with no patterns. That's why on a plane, what you have is you have 4 engines when 1 is enough. You have 3 pilots when 1 is enough. You have 4 operating systems when 1 is enough. And why is that? The reason is when you're up in the air, you can't be focused on efficiency. You got to be focused on safety. And so what if some of the pilots die? Well, we've got a backup. What if some of the operating systems go down? Well, we've got a backup for the backup for the backup. And what if 1 or 2 or 3 of the engines go down? Well, we've got backups of engines as well. That's why flying is one of the safest ways for us to transport ourselves, because it's been built for complexity, not complications. Now, in a world of complexity, we have to be ready for all scenarios. And that's why business structures have to keep their focus on efficiencies, because that's obviously important to keep the lights on. But we also need to start building and thinking and planting and recalibrating ourselves for what's coming. And we know that what's coming is uncertain. So what we have to do in order to prepare for uncertainty is develop robust business models, robust structures that give ourselves an opportunity to experiment, try things, and see what grabs and what doesn't grab. Now, most business owners don't want to hear this, because all business owners want to focus on efficiency and profitability and economies of scale. And all of those are very, very important. But remember, if you're not planting seeds in for tomorrow through a process of experimentation, through a process of developing a tomorrow team, a team that thinks about tomorrow, that doesn't have to worry about yesterday or today, you will find yourself in trouble, because we see many businesses that are hugely successful and all of a sudden they're gone. Now, one example before I come back to you, Rob, is Japan Airlines right now has developed this idea of complicated and complex, also known as innovation and disruption. Now, innovation is well known to be doing what you always did, just a bit better. And so these incremental innovation processes are very, very important for businesses. But disruption is something totally different. Disruption is making your current business model obsolete to create a new business model. Now, most people think they're the same, but they're absolutely different. So you can't have people innovating and disrupting. They almost sit in different camps. So Japan Airlines knows this, and Japan Airlines developed a tomorrow team, or a disruption team, that was thinking about the future of travel. And what they did was they developed an avatar system where you put on a suit from head to toe, where you have a visceral experience of heat, of touch, of cold, or whatever the case may be. Now, what happens when you put this helmet on and the suit, you're able to travel to anywhere in the world and have a very realistic experience of it. They are already experimenting with paraplegic people that have never been able to walk, to have the sensations of this process of moving through water or land. And so you can now travel with your grandmother to anywhere in the world or even to Mars, utilizing Japan Airlines Tomorrow Teams ideas. Now, this is the point, is that the people that are worrying about the flights being efficient, pilots being trained, airports being ready, and the air hostesses being trained and customers coming in, that is the team that focuses on the today. And then they have a totally different team focused on tomorrow, because the virtual reality people here, the people creating the suits, have got nothing to do with being engineers or pilots. And so this is the idea that we need to land and give context for the next sort of half an hour together, is that one, we are all taking a new type of fatigue and emotional stress. We need to be more patient and calmer as we go through this. And two, we have to prepare for complexity while we are still working in a complicated world as it starts fading away and starts moving into a more complex, unplanned, unpatterned world. Rob?
I'm guessing we are in an unplanned, unpatterned situation at the moment in the world with COVID. It has completely changed the way people have to think. Businesses have to completely think differently. And, you know, we're seeing lots of small scale kind of changing in thinking. I'm trying to think of some ideas, but things like in the UK, I was listening to an example today where a company, a shop was told, you're not selling essential items during the lockdown, you have to close. So the owner went and bought some essential items, put them into his shop window, and then stayed open so that he could say, I am selling essential items, but I'm also selling these non-essential items, which you have said I am allowed to do as long as I've got essential items.
Very smart.
So
I like that.
So, and I guess that's what you want, isn't it? You want that thinking differently to solve those sorts of challenges.
Well, remember, that is innovation, and that's very smart and very necessary. But disruption is having a delivery business rather than a business that people have to come to. You understand? Is that it's flipping the business model, that you have to think about these things. Now, what most business owners stress about and most execs stress about is the fact that they need to come up with the plans for tomorrow. And I want to give everybody a breath of fresh air. You don't have to. And it's not up to you, because your capabilities and your abilities, the reason that you've gotten yourself to this executive level is that you've been excellent at doing what we needed to do to get to this point. What we need to do from this point moving forward requires new capabilities, requires new abilities that maybe you don't have, maybe you do, but really the strength of a leader in today's world is having the courage to hire people with these new capabilities and to give them some sort of budget for them to play with and experiment with to see what they could create for tomorrow's world.
So John, the moment of disruption, you have your tomorrow team, you have your today team. Maybe you're a successful company, but you've seen that if you don't change, that success won't continue. And I mean, there's been plenty of examples, even in the last 20 years, there's been very, very good examples of companies that didn't see tomorrow, carried on with their very successful business, and then one day suddenly it wasn't successful anymore.
Yes.
So you have your tomorrow team, the disruption team.
Yeah.
You now think you're ready. How do you flip your business so that you remain successful, or do you have to accept you go through some pain?
Well, great question. Okay, so there's two options here, right? One of them is called scaling the edges. And scaling the edges is this idea that you bring in a team, a consultant, some futurists, some strategists, and we work out with you what is required as possibilities on the edge of your scale of your sector, right? Scaling the edges of your sector. And what we do is we set up these small startups at the edge, and we watch them and see what they do and how they grow and how the market takes to them. Now we have a choice. When we see one or two of them start really doing well, we take one of our execs and we pop them into the startup and allow the startup to start having its own set of businesses, own parallel process next to yours. And it's up to you, depending on your business, your industry, whether you want to bring that business into your fold or you want to keep it in the parallel place and just let it go. Now, that's one option. The other option is to be able to just start new businesses. And I think that's really important for us to really think about, is that just because you've been doing this business for all this time doesn't mean you necessarily have to stay in this business all this time. If you have the foresight and if you understand what the world could possibly look like based on consumers' need states and expectations, you could just jump ships. Now, the most famous business, Amazon, how many businesses are they in? 22 at the last time I checked. They have got so many multiple businesses happening that have got nothing to do with their core business of selling books. They've just been jumping sectors, hiring the best and allowing them to grow, and have one of the most patient processes of experimentation and innovation and disruption. Another one, Tesla, jumping between all sorts, not Tesla, Elon Musk, jumping between all sorts of sectors, wanting to experiment with all different types of things. So it's up to you. You want to scale the edges, or you want to just run new parallel businesses. That becomes your choice. But the thing is that don't think for a second that you don't need to be doing that. I think it was McKinsey who came out with a stat that said 70% of your money should be focused on keeping the lights on and keeping things efficient, but 30% should be focused on planting seeds. And yesterday I was in quite a big platform we were speaking, and some of the execs said to me, well, how can we guarantee success out of that 30%? And that question itself is the faulty question, because you can't guarantee success, because you have to make sure you're experimenting just in case we get to that sort of world. So there is no guaranteed success in this complexity of a world that we're moving into.
So interestingly, so I have in the past worked for a company where we were very, very successful at what we did. Another company that was bigger came along and bought us. They merged us in with their unit and we just died. They broke us basically. So when you have that sort of thing where you have something, an idea, a disruption, how do you make sure you don't break it? You know, how, if you're popping in an exec to run that, how do you make sure that actually that progress still continues? Yeah,
that's a great question, you know, and Rob, I would need to be in that specific scenario, but what you're talking about there is the immune system. And well documented by Salim Ismail, the CEO of Exco around the world. And he talks about this immune system where an organization naturally has an immune system. And without even realizing it, the people that work inside that organization can't gel with new ideas. And so the mistake they most probably made is they didn't leave you and let you be and carry on being profitable and driving it. They wanted to bring you into the main body, and the immune systems in that main body killed you. So what I would think is that the strategist had it right, the operational people didn't. The memo didn't arrive, or somehow they got joined too quickly. So again, this is a base project by project basis. You know, I've worked in the travel industry. I worked in the diamond industry. Let me give you an example there and how different it is. I worked with one of the world's largest, if not the largest, diamond business here in South Africa. And what they asked me to do was look at the future of diamonds with them. And we looked at the future of diamonds and we realized that the question was wrong. The question should be not what is the future of diamonds, but what is the future of luxury? Because the truth is that diamonds represents luxury. Now, and through a lot of stats and research, we saw that about 25% of the human population are governed and motivated by a mega trend called guilt-free consumption. These people have got lots of money, but they don't drive cars, they don't buy high fashion items, they go to markets around the world. They really don't like diamonds, I can tell you that. And so what's happening with this company is they are losing this 25 or 30% of their market. And so what they did was they developed a tomorrow team that is now focused on developing what luxury looks like for this new market. And so they've kept their today business. They're still doing diamonds very successfully for the emerging market because they still see that as luxury. But they've now developed a tomorrow team that's parallel to their business, that doesn't even have their name on it. It's just running parallel, running luxury ideas, which is actually, if you want to know, it's bespoke experiences. This is what these people love more than anything else, is ecotourism and bespoke experiences. And that becomes a brand new business for them never to bring into a mining business, because what do miners know about travel? Nothing.
So John, I mean, this has been a really interesting conversation, and I love the answers, because so far I've not asked you a single question that you knew you were going to be asked. Yeah, and you've had great examples, great insight, and really interesting answers for every single one of them.
Cool.
We're obviously discussing the digitalisation, the digital transformation of construction. Now, construction is an industry that is renowned for being fairly slow to embrace new technologies, but personally, I'm seeing a lot of willingness and a lot of interest in embracing new ideas, new ways of working, new processes, and what they can do. So how, with what you're saying, with the way you're talking about the disruptors, the innovators, etc., how can we kind of line that up with construction? What the people who are sitting here listening now, you know, what are they taking away with them?
So look, I would imagine it's a similar world to mining, right? It's an age-old process. There's an efficiency at hand. There's projects at play. In the mining world, you have upstream, midstream, and lower stream. You guys have got most probably procurement, architecture, management. You know, got that whole process. So you've got the similar process. The thing for me is, you don't have to come up with what's needed tomorrow. You know, the digital transformation that you're having, you must also realize that the digital transformation that we've always seen in the past is about bringing more efficiency to your current business model. That's not always digital transformation. That is doing what you always did, just better on a computer. You know, the first time they took a school and digitally transformed it, what do? They put all the textbooks on an iPad. Now, that is digital transformation, but it's not really digital transformation if you think about it. And so there's layering to digital transformation. In fact, let's not even call it digital. Let's just talk it transformation, right? Because obviously it's digital, but it's also mindset. It's also capabilities. It's also different markets. So let's forget digital and let's talk transformation. Now, transformation has 3 sections. It has the sad, the strange, and the adventure. The sad, because all transformations have to start with an ending, because you have to say goodbye to something that you were familiar with, a comfort zone, and that's sad. You have to say goodbye. And then you get into strange, and strange is where we are right now, where nothing makes sense, nothing's familiar, you can't connect any dots, it's all up in the air. And then eventually we'll get to adventure again, and adventure will pick up new momentum. We are squarely in no man's land. And in no man's land, there's a great saying that says, when nothing is certain, anything is possible. And we have this opportunity, while things are so uncertain, to rewrite the rules as far or as conservatively as we feel comfortable to do. So as construction people, what I would suggest you do is try and understand what it is you're trying to do at the end of the day. Are you building? Are you housing? Are you putting people in I hope you're not putting people in offices, because I don't think that's going to be a very good business moving forward. But what part of that process are you actually doing? And then how else could you be servicing those things? Bring in a team to try and think about more services and allow them to transform on the edge, and then work backwards to scaling into efficiencies and bringing about new innovation, new disruption, and ultimately scaling the edges on the end. So look, it's a multi-layered process, and it takes us weeks, if not months, to work with organizations to layer them so we know exactly who's doing what, when, and where, because it's a process of transformation. And so right now, the strange place we're in is the perfect place to think about it in the most extreme way possible.
See, I think you're very right, actually, in that I think with all of these things, you start off with a particular phrase and eventually you drop one aspect of it and talk about transformation rather than digital transformation. And I think it suddenly isn't quite as scary as well. Sometimes the word digital, it makes people think maybe they're going to be replaced, or they're going to have to learn processes that just are not in the way their brain works. So it's an interesting...
Rob, both of those are valid. That is what's going on. You have to unlearn to relearn, right?
Yeah.
There's a great saying that says the knowledgeable man has to learn something new every day. The wise man has to unlearn something new every day. And it's this wisdom that we require. And remember that we are living in a surplus society. And what I mean by that is that we have a world of surplus skills. And the reason for this is that all universities around the world have been teaching pretty much the same subjects. So no matter where you go in the world, everybody's kind of trained in the same way. So we live in a surplus of accountants, of lawyers, and there's just so many of these people, because it used to be the case if you had a degree, you were guaranteed. And now you have a degree doesn't mean anything, actually. So we also have to realize that there isn't this opportunity for us to lose our jobs, lose our businesses, have to unlearn to relearn is the reality of where we are. We can't avoid those. And in fact, we shouldn't avoid them. We should be jumping into them and saying, look, it's tough, it's not easy, but it's something I have to do. And I just use myself as an example. I've got a few businesses, but my own speaking business, I had my biggest contract signed up for the next year around the world, speaking for a major a company, and all of it got taken away. I mean, it was just like that overnight, right? So I had to reinvent my business. Did I sulk a little bit? Yes. Did I get a little bit angry? Yes. But eventually I had to get on with it and I had to start reinventing and rethinking. So just to touch on that point, yes, you might lose your job. Yes, you might have to learn something new. Yes, you might have a problem with your business. That's what disruption is. And we shouldn't be scared of it. We should be diving deeper into it.
But do you think this is innovation? I mean, your example there is a very good one and very similar to my company, where we, you know, over the course of about 5 days because of COVID, we suddenly saw all our contracts disappear. We sat down, we talked about it, and we said, okay, let's start again. And now we're back. You know, we never really left, but now, you know, we essentially said, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
This is where we go. You know, the trade delegations we do, we won't do them in person anymore. We'll do them using Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. But does that not count as kind of innovation and kind of forced innovation?
Of course, this is innovation, but then you also have a choice, Rob. Do you want to be disruptive or just innovative? And I think that's, again, a personal choice. There's no right answer, right? I've also been disruptive because I've taken all my master classes and put them onto an online university. That's quite disruptive because I'm making my current business model obsolete to create a new business model. And so, yes, it's up to you and it's your choice. Do you want to be innovative? You want to be disruptive? You want to be in between? You want to be both? That's your choice. What I suggest is that you become courageous and that you do both, because we think we're in an uncertain world now. We have no idea what's coming. You know, we keep seeing countries going into lockdown. We got a vaccine. We don't know if it's going to work or not. We don't know if the efficacy is right. We have a president who doesn't want to leave his office. We just have no idea. And we have so many domino effects of bankruptcies that are still coming, that are still going to be taking shape moving forward. Is, I would suggest, courage is by far the most important characteristic, combined with resilience, that we can have as owners, employees, execs, whatever the case may be, is in order for us to be able to get ready for this incredibly uncertain world that we're moving into.
Yeah, I suppose actually in construction, that means that, you know, when you're with what you're talking about, it's not just, for instance, the contractor that needs to embrace this. It's also the client, the person who wants the building developed, and they need to be thinking about different ways perhaps that their buildings can be developed. I know I live in Dubai. Here, there's a target that within a few years, 30% of all buildings will be 3D printed. I would consider that, and again, you know, I would consider that disruptive. But you know, everything you're saying is quite new to me now. And you know, again, the industry. One of the previous speakers was talking about modular design, where it's much more of a factory process. Again, completely different way of thinking about how you move forwards, but it also means the client has to think differently. And
yes, of course. And I think the best thing we can do is become thought leaders for our clients and advisors to them. And once we're able to do that with our clients, we build this incredible level of trust, and price becomes secondary. It's that need for that thought leadership. And I think that's also another amazing thing that we could all be doing, is becoming more advisory and more thought leaders in our specific skill sets, so that we can advise people before we actually sell them the products or services.
Okay, so final question then. It was actually going to be my first question, but then we took a left turn, which was when I was listening to you speaking at the beginning, I was thinking, does this mean that education needs to be fundamentally rethought, and training in any industry needs to be rethought? Because right now we're sort of teaching children, this is the way you think, and then you go to university and it's a little bit more free spirit, and it's a little bit more guidance, but you go and do your own research. But then, you know, with certain industries, certain professions, again, you're still kind of taught more. So do we need the training, both kind of post university level, when people start entering business? Does that need to be rethought, and even maybe at previous levels?
Look, it's a tough place for education. And I'll tell you why. Is we are so in the middle of this transition between the old linear industrial revolution world and this new quantum dynamic digital world that we're moving into, that we have this one foot in the new. Nobody actually knows what the future looks like. But you also can't really take your kids out of school, because what are you going to do with them, even though they're learning things they could just Google? So it's actually no point, in fact, learning any of those things. So it's a tough place. But what I think is really important is there are these core skills. Some people call them soft skills. I get very upset when they do, because they're actually core skills. And in the world we're moving into, what we need I think the very first thing we need to teach our kids is passion. Now, passion is a very difficult thing to teach, because how do you teach anybody passion? But actually, passion is derived from exposure. Now, I know, Rob, you and me, when we were growing up, we only saw our mom and dad's careers and maybe our friends' mom and dad's careers. And then what did you choose? You were one of those careers because you liked your uncle and he was an architect. And you're like, yeah, I want to be just like my uncle. I'm going to be an architect. You weren't exposed to many different careers. So you didn't actually get an opportunity to live out your passion, your curiosity, and your excitement. I think the world we're moving into is so not linear and it's so dynamic that if your child or even yourself are not incredibly fascinated with the topic that you are working with, you will become fatigued, upset, and angry very quickly. The only thing that will get us through this incredible multi-adaptive, multifaceted world is fascination, curiosity, excitement, and passion. So the first thing I always tell people that I work with is get your child, no matter how old they are, in fact, even yourself, if you like, is to dissect a career every 2 weeks and do a 10-minute presentation on that career. Doctor, lawyer, AI, whatever you want to do, whatever it is, hairdresser, pilot, whatever. And then figure out which parts of that career you love and don't love. And then eventually, by the end of the year, you've now done 24 different careers that you could find passion or not find passion in. And instead of trying to fit into the box, we have to realize that we need to become the machine, not the cog in the machine. So the world requires us to show up differently. Some of the other subjects I talk about is teaching empathy, or teaching storytelling, or teaching grit. You know, another thing that the kids today don't have much of is grit. And the reason is we live in a digital world. And so imagine your child once a month would dissect an entrepreneur's life. And then they would figure out that that entrepreneur has nearly been bankrupt 3 times, went through a divorce, had a heart disease before they got to being this successful picture. So there's many different core skills that we should be thinking about and teaching our kids while they're at school, or even after school. And here's a little secret. We all need to be learning them, because the world we're moving into, we're going to be competing with our kids really soon. And how many of people's kids on this call right now are already really dynamic online? I know some of my friends' kids are selling things on Instagram. I don't even know how to sell things on Instagram yet. These kids are on it, on the way there. And guess what? In the future, you and I will be competing against these kids, because that will be the marketplace all of us need to be working on.
John, thank you so much. That was really, really interesting. And again, thank you, because you didn't know any of the questions that I was going to throw at you. So it's been really interesting hearing your answers, given the depth and also the examples you've given, and hopefully it's painted a picture in people's heads. So Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So we'll now move into a 10-minute comfort break, or a 5-minute actually. We'll move into a 5-minute comfort break. On our return, we'll have a presentation from Gerhard Nell, who is from McKinsey & Company, and he will be discussing how to overcome some of the common challenges when undertaking a digital transformation. Welcome back. We now move on to our next presentation, which will be given by, which will look at defining and decoding transformation in the built environment. It will be given by Gerhard Nell, expert partner, capital productivity at McKinsey & Company. He'll be joined by Leon de Kock, mega project manager, Exaro Resources. They will discuss the 5 practices in common that will lead to a successful digital transformation. So Gerhard, over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Very excited today to share with you our latest research on the new normal in project delivery. I've also invited Leon, one of the project controls and project manager we recently worked with here in South Africa, where we applied some of these digital tools in a project execution. So very much looking forward to the discussion. I think the reality was, even before COVID, there was a clear need for change in project delivery, with 90% of the leaders globally saying that the industry needs to change, and 80% believing that there's going to be a radical change within the next 20 years. Where we are today, there's clearly been an acceleration with at least 2/3 of these leaders saying that the change needs to be accelerated within the COVID constraints, and at least half of them saying that they have increased their investment in digitalization to overcome some of these challenges. What's driving this? So from a market perspective, the customer needs are clearly changing. The project complexity is increasing, while from a market rules or regulatory perspective, most projects get awarded based on price. On the industry side, the projects are very much set up and executed on a project basis in a very fragmented ecosystem with misaligned contractual structures, incentives, and also by insourcing labor as required through contractors and temporary staff. The outcome of this is not surprising. We've seen over the years, at best, a 1% improvement in capital productivity or construction productivity. Also seen very slow adoption of innovation technology in industry, and low profits, even with a stable growth in construction projects. And overall, 80% of the customers are not happy. So there's clearly a big need for change. Some of these new industry dynamics that will define the new operating model based on the research, include a change in these demand factors, also some change in supply factors. For example, here in South Africa, the skill shortages is real and becoming a bigger challenge. Also change in regulatory requirements. This combined with industry disruptors like industrialization, or for example, like the modularization that John referred to, digitalization and new entrants or unicorns in the market will enable this disruption and transformation of the industry. We've also did a survey on all the digital solutions out there, and we literally surveyed 2,400 companies. And there's clear trends or constellations starting to evolve. One constellation is around the digital twinning environment and the value created from digital twinning. Second constellation is around this modernization, robotics, 3D printing, trying to create predictable work in a predictable environment. Then there's a third constellation around using big data or data science through advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, and a fourth constellation of solutions around the supply chain optimization and marketplace. So I'm sure most people on the call have been engaged with some of these digital solutions and thought, how do you actually bring this together? And for that reason, we thought it'd be good exercise to ask Leon to present how their project actually brought digital into their project execution.
Good afternoon, everybody. So in terms of Exaro is mainly our core operation is coal, but we are also in titanium, iron ore, zinc, and we are moving in the direction of being an energy company. On the next slide, you will see that we actually aiming to digitize from pit to port, from your geological data up to where you actually sends the product to the client. We want to digitize everything, and we do that with drones and virtual reality models, digital twinning, that we put all sorts of in terms of the Internet of Things, put sensors in place so that you can digitize it. On the next slide, you will actually see a little video that will just orientate you in terms of the project. It's a greenfields mine that we had to build from pit to a ramp and platform, conveyors, silo, low gravity and high gravity plant to the export to local and international markets.
A coal mine construction project was required to supply 1 million tons by the year ending 2019 to ensure early return on investment. The pain points experienced on site at the start of the engagement were multiple plans on site and a commissioning schedule which did not allow for prioritization, contractors that were not following their own plans, resulting in projected delays of up to 6 months, no on-site collaboration and problem solving, resulting in a lost opportunity for productivity improvement and cross-pollination of ideas. To structure our approach, we created a systems view aligned to the commissioning sequence. This allowed the construction effort to be concentrated on critical activities. Weekly sprint reviews created alignment and allowed issues to be addressed in team problem-solving sessions. This way, we were able to celebrate our highs and resolve issues around our lows. We then transitioned from paper to digital. This greatly simplified stakeholder engagement and performance dialogues, with all construction and commissioning KPIs available on the go, driving fact-based conversations on and off-site. We planned with the contractors foreman to ensure robust plans that considered all construction levels. The result was ambitious work plans driven by the front line. We had check-ins on site to create daily accountability and alignment. These allowed us to proactively identify and remove roadblocks to productivity. We then rolled out digital check-ins to reduce the standing time on site and improve daily reporting. The app deployed was also used to flag in-field issues and reduce response time. Slowly, on-site discussions evolved from finger-pointing sessions to constructive problem-solving. We rolled out a digital twin for critical areas. This became the single source of truth on productivity and progress, which greatly improved performance management and alignment on goals across all stakeholders. The digital twin allowed us to see exact deviations of the earthworks from the final design using the deviance heat map, quantify and track progress. Visualizing the remaining works in weekly planning sessions made the production targets much more tangible to contractors. The graphical representation of plan versus actual data, updated as regularly as the drone flights allow, became the single source of truth, making this particular contractor's paper reporting redundant. We identified and reduced waste associated with material handling. Handover delays were averted by creating accountability across interfaces. We identified motion waste on-site, enabling the contractor to free up equipment to be used on other critical areas. The supervisors across site created a learning group dedicated to sharing lessons learned, lean learnings, and building up problem-solving mindsets and capabilities. We identified and reduced waste associated with material handling. By embedding the lean construction principles, we accelerated the construction to meet construction requirements and achieve first call 6 months ahead of plan.
Yeah, so you could see it was a greenfields mine, and some of the contractors showed signs of running late, and there was significant value for us to actually accelerate the project in terms of income to the company. So we looked at the critical paths, and specifically the dam that you saw was the biggest storage dam, and we could track that very closely. We actually want to go into more detail on the digital control tower. You can just read there, and the digital measurements, and then the digital risk management as well that we implement. On the next slide, you will see that there were 4 digital tools or 4 key areas that we introduced the digital tools. It was digital control tower, where the Power BI dashboards, we utilized them to actually take the existing lean construction dashboards, but it could be sent to mobile devices, so your sprint reviews could be done on site or remotely. To analyze data is normally a very manual process, but these dashboards actually provided instant views on the interpreted data. And then the task scheduling application, that was a very nice one. We tested the digital task manager tool, and it worked very well. As you could see on the video as well, the task could be pushed to the foreman, and they could in real time actually say what they do, what do they have problems with, and there was real time communication to each other or to the site manager, and then it resulted in minimal time that was spent to prepare the daily production updates. In terms of digital twin, with the drones, we could initiate automated progress measurements. As I said, the biggest water storage dam was the most significant risk on the critical path, but with the drone data that was sent to a platform in real time, we could see what was actually going on in less than 12 hours. And then on the advanced analytics, here we could really explore the use of advanced analytics for project risk identification. So we could use leading indicators, and it was a early warning system for overruns. So we looked at the correlation between specific actions and then the overruns, and then we created a model to determine the accuracy and the validity of the existing client's data, so that we could get to this early warning system. A very interesting thing that came out of this was emails. The moment that emails is sent before 7 o'clock in the morning, it actually triggered a warning system that this might be an activity that will overrun. So it worked very well for us, the whole digitization, and we could deliver the project 6 months ahead of schedule, and added value to Exaro.
Thank you, Leon, and thanks for sharing the case. I think this was just to give the group here a flavor of the potential of digital and how digital can really help to transform the industry. I think what's critical to highlight is this was very targeted for digital initiatives that was started literally a year before project completion, and the project team were able to pull back the project by 6 months. So massive impact considering that you have the time to completion of the project. I think the key success here was understanding where the value losses came from or where the high risk areas are, using very targeted tools to create transparency and to enable everybody in a project team with the same information in real time, but improve decision making, problem solving, and also helped at the end to do the project closeout. So this very exciting opportunity, and there's clear potential. You can imagine if the right digital tools are implemented from day one, how much value can be unlocked. What clearly stood out from the recent research then is that the industry will change, and there's basically 6 main disruptors that will force this change. One is increased digitalization and investment in technology. Second, key areas around the rebalancing of the supply chain, making the supply chain a lot more resilient and efficient. And then the third disruptor around the acceleration of consolidation and the increase in vertical integration. The first element is around this increase in offsite manufacturing with modularization, standardization, prefabrication in a controlled environment. And then the last element is this acceleration in demand for sustainability. There's increased pressure around sustainable solutions. It's also clear that the future project operating model will be completely different from what we have today. From a project-based setup where the whole end-to-end value chain and project lifecycle is set up for a specific project with very fragmented ecosystem, also a lot of construction on-site, bespoke, to a product-based setup where multiple projects feed into a new operating model. And within that operating model, there will be specific design components or library of components that can be reused, that gets manufactured in a controlled environment and then efficiently constructed on site. So it's very clear that there's big opportunity for change. The initial pioneers in some of these digital solutions are starting to unlock value, but a huge opportunity still to follow. What also stood out from the recent research was that the contractors actually will see the biggest change. And this was very interesting because we found with our clients here in South Africa that a lot of the change has to be driven by the client. And also the initial investment in that digital solutions have to come from a client. While actually the contractors will be mostly affected by this change. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share this latest research and also share the case example. Happy to take questions.
So Gerhard and Leon, are you still here? Yes. I noticed you were using quite a lot of software that really actually I haven't seen used that much in many other regions. So for instance, digital twins gets used quite a lot or talked about a lot, but we don't see it used very often at the moment. What drove you to really invest in and implement all of these monitoring tools as well? Because you said you were getting alerts. And what did you have to go through to make sure everybody knew how to use them properly?
Gerard, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can comment. I think the reality is often when we get involved with projects, the quality of the data is always a challenge, like of getting real-time measurement from site. And there's always a disagreement between subcontractors, contractors, and client about what's a true status. And the only way to overcome is to get real-time data. And we've looked at various digital solutions. I think part of the success was to get a solution that have conversion very quickly. So literally the drone fly for one day, the next day you had the output measurements. The second key success criteria was to get everybody access to the same solution. And it was a cloud-based solution, so everybody, including contractors, subcontractors, commercial people, construction people, had full access. And it became part of the way people work and problem solve on site, where for productivity meetings, the digital twin was used. When there was a query on measurements or problem solving on how to solve a specific construction challenge on site, the digital twin was pulled up. Even the commercial teams started to use the digital twin when there was a dispute on a claim. So I think creating that transparency, getting the data real time, and making it accessible to everybody was a key unlock. I don't know, Leon, anything you would like to add on it?
Yeah, I want to add, I think revenue that we could actually gain. So that was the biggest driver. But what we've learned in this whole process, the digital twin gives you access to actually create this virtual reality environment. And the virtual reality is date stamped, and you can look at last week against this week, or you can look at today against your design model for quality purposes. And then in the end, the contractor doesn't have something or a foot to stand on, and they can't take chances. We had a claim rate on the project of 0.04%.
That's very low.
Extremely small. It's extremely small. So the money that we invested in the digital twin environment and the platform was really worth it, money-wise.
And did you link that with a BIM, an advanced BIM model?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you were using what, time scheduling and budgeting within BIM as well to manage all of this?
Yes, we did.
Okay, interesting. And one we're going to move on in a moment. One very final question: the drones that you were talking about. Now, I know that drone footage can create huge data files, and one of the comments I've had in the past from people is it took ages to convert and be able to use this. How have you managed that? Are you getting very big data files, or have you found a way of compressing them?
No, not really. We actually uploaded it to a platform to a company in another country, but the uploading was 4 to 7 hours. But we used quite a hefty computer, and we actually changed it during the project when we accelerated. So it was uploaded. Well, I think I can say that to a company in Canada, and the platform was actually situated there. So the photogrammetry was converted to this virtual reality environment, and they've got fast servers. So front end was just the web view, and it worked extremely well.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, but it took about 3 to 7 hours to actually upload it.
Okay.
Robert, we definitely, when we looked at other solutions, that was part of a challenge, but you needed such powerful computers to actually use the output. With this combination of using third-party cloud-based solutions, we could make it accessible to everybody. You could run it on any computer, and I think that was a huge unlock. And the other key point that Leon mentioned, like creating a history, because it was all date stamped, so twice a week you had true measurement across site. So there was no, there was only one source of truth at the end.
And of course, all your data was in a single place, I take it. It was easy to access. Everybody knew what the data was, and it was managed properly. Because again, that's another big issue that has to be.
Yeah, it was fantastic between the different dates, or you could toggle between different layers and so on. Everything was actually on the portal.
Okay, wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you. That was really interesting, a really interesting presentation. So thank you very much for that. Before I move on to the very final presentation of today, I just want to remind everybody that we have a competition running, which is to win a lifetime user license to Candy. You can enter by going to www.ribccsfuturenow.com. We'll also have the QR code showing again at the end after this upcoming presentation. So our final presentation of today is is on transformation change management. It will be given by Issam El Absi, Director of Global BIM Management for Infrastructure Projects Certification Program. A civil engineer and BIM expert, Issam has worked on some significant projects here in the Gulf region, including Dubai Mall, Abu Dhabi's International's Midfield Terminal, and the RIB Metro project. Issam is going to present on two of the key obstacles that companies quite often face when digitalizing their processes, which is the social and human challenges, which we have talked about a little bit today, and secondly, economy and technology related challenges. So Issam, please, over to you. Issam, you're currently on mute.
So my apologies. Okay, thank you so much, Rob, for the introduction. And I would like to thank RIB CCS for organizing this event. And also I would like to thank the presenters for giving such valuable information before me. And thank you so much for the participants for making this event as successful as it is now. I would like to share with you a small presentation and our experience about the challenges that we have faced when we embark BIM and digital transformation journeys in our organizations. This is my presentation. Just to give you a small brief about our background, we have started BIM and digital transformation journey since 1997. We have emerged from a contractor, an international contractor, who was specialized in delivering infrastructure and oil and gas projects in the Middle East and Africa and the CIS countries. This was ranked top construction companies worldwide. Since that time, we have understood the value of digital transformation and BIM. And that's why we have increased the capacity of our resources and our organization. And at the beginning of 2020, we had almost 240 BIM professionals from between fresh graduates and 30 years of experience, diversified skills and capabilities in the field of construction and different fields and different functions of construction, infrastructure, oil and gas, civil projects, and buildings. And of course, we have a very strong team of automation and IT systems. Of course, as you could see from our project portfolio of projects, we have worked on many countries in the world, in North Africa and the Middle East, CIS countries, and Asia. And our projects was from medium-sized to mega-scale projects. One of the biggest implementation we have done for BIM is the Midfield Terminal building in Abu Dhabi and the Riyadh Metro in Saudi Arabia. Now I'm coming to a very important topic. What are the challenges and obstacles we faced when we came and we embarked the BIM journey in our organization or with the supply chain in general? The first challenge was availability of competent resources who do understand the real business of BIM in practice, how they can manage projects, how they can tackle designs, how they can understand the workflow and leverage information management and digital transformation and construction. So we could really we found it really difficult to find good competent resources in this field specifically. The second challenge has to do with the change of the mindset of the construction team. You know, construction industry is a very old industry. It has a lot of very experienced qualified engineers, live their lives and doing business, doing construction the way they think it's the best. And it's too difficult to change the mindset of those experienced, knowledgeable project managers and construction managers. So this is a very tough challenge. Of course, also there is a cultural change. How can those who are using traditional workflows for design, 2D drawings, reading drawings, printed, how we can change their culture to accept digital workflows, digital methods, and using tablets and similar tools for managing and running the construction. And there is a very important fear that we have realized during our journey is that this social fear of the unknown, this fear of losing my job, the fear of embarking something that I might fail to. This is really a challenge for the whole society. And we realize it is very important to manage and transfer this fear from a negative side to a positive side. When we work in digital transformation and when we embark the BIM journey, it's very important to understand that all the stakeholders will go to an era of transparency, where everything is clear, obvious, monitored, and planned ahead. So this transfer from non-transparent environment, traditional workflow, to a very transparent digital workflow is really a challenge. This is from the human side perspective. On the other side, we have realized that technology is an obstacle, and it is not an obstacle with the real meaning of an obstacle, but technology is moving very fast. We are running behind technology, trying to catch the technology, trying to apply it to the construction field. The distance between the construction field and the technology is really big, and this distance is increasing. So it's a challenge how to bridge the gap between technology providers, between the technology and the construction field. Of course, competition between software vendors, software suppliers is an issue. And I think this needs to be addressed because it is affecting the interoperability, which will come to it as one of the challenges, is affecting interoperability of the utilization of information between the supply chain stakeholders. And this brings us to the interoperability issue. And how can we manage this problem within our construction and within our supply chain of any construction? As you know, there's so many stakeholders in the business. There's a lot of players, designers, contractors, facility managers, operators. And as such, how can we make sure that the information generated from one stakeholder to the other is transferred properly in the correct format and can be read, as one of my colleagues said, entered once, utilized to the rest of the supply chain. And then to be able to convince the industry that embarking BIM and digital transformation for the construction will bring benefit to the whole supply chain. How can we quantify this? How can we create meaningful ROIs that can push the decision makers, the owners, whoever in this process to go and invest and believe that whatever any investment he is going to add to the process will bring a value and a true value to the whole process. And we cannot, of course, pass the importance of standards and the problem that the standards are also lagging behind when everything is moving very fast, and yet standards are still could not really shape a framework that everybody can work with and can deliver his part of the process of his information part, his design part, his construction part in a standard way where everybody can understand. We still find it too difficult to find a correct standard that can absorb all the supply chain needs, all the functions of a project, especially that we understand that the construction process is really is complex and complicated. Last is the economical part, the pressure that we are all living because of the recession, the difficult economical conditions that the whole society is living. How can we absorb that? And how can we invest in technology in the time that there is an economical recession? And as an answer for all these challenges, we believe that proper education comes as the hero who can, I believe, as the savior for every part of these challenges, more or less. And I have heard education and knowledge transfer through all the day-to-day. And I can just assure you that from our experience, the only way the whole supply chain can embark this journey safely, properly, and with proper targets, proper achievements, is by offering massive proper education to all the stakeholders in this business, whether from the early life cycle phase of design through construction until handing over and then running and operating the facility for many years to come. So we always believe that proper education is the answer for all these challenges. That's why 10 years ago, we have established our BIM Academy. This BIM Academy has emerged from the construction field, understands what are the construction veins, the problems in construction. It's a one-year education that was given to our engineers and our partners to help them understand and be ready to work on the construction site using BIM properly, absorbing the workflows, and they can be the central point, the focal point for disseminating the information or the knowledge to the rest of the stakeholders. From this academy, we have graduated almost 300 engineers, and those engineers are well fit in the project operations. They can understand properly all the ingredients that are necessary to deliver value from information management. This is some photographs of the students or engineers who have joined the BIM Academy. This is some sample of the projects that they delivered completely using a complete comprehensive BIM process from design through construction until handing over. Of course, we were supporting this classroom education with site visits, and we were relating all the workflows that they see digitally in a classroom to what's happening in the construction field. And definitely, since this education was very successful and effective, we thought it's very wise to disseminate this knowledge widely by going online. So 4 years ago, we had translated or converted this BIM Academy education to an online master certification with the collaboration of one of the reputable online service providers. This was 4 years ago. In this master degree, we cover different paths of construction, such as roads and highways, railways and metro lines, tunnels and bridges, underground utilities or subsurface utilities, and of course, buildings. This master degree has been recognized, accredited by different reputable organizations, such as University of Barcelona, Ziggurat, Global Institute of Technology, CIAT, and BRI, and many others. Thank you so much for listening, and I will leave the floor. I'm giving a chance for questions and answers. Thank you so much.
Hi, Issam. So interesting, you have the BIM Academy. You're talking about introducing that kind of 3D modeling to more and more people, and we're seeing it used really quite widely now. Are you seeing some of the more advanced versions of BIM being used, as in, 4D, 5D, 6D, so sequencing, cost, and project lifecycle? Are those increasingly being used now?
Yes, actually they are, and it's part of the education is to provide the engineer with all these tools, how to use planning, not only as a 4D sequencing, but as really a planning tool, how to use BIM for scope management, which is known as 5D, how to use BIM for green building initiatives and sustainability, which is known as 6D, and then how to integrate all this with the facility management process and operation and maintenance of buildings, which is known as 7D. So actually, during this education, we are giving the students, or the engineers actually, they are professionals, all the tools that makes them capable of understanding and utilizing BIM for the full life cycle of the project, including what you have mentioned, 4D, 5D, 6, and 7D.
And are you seeing, because again, a couple of the previous presentation, Leon mentioned that there was only, I think he said something like 0.4% value of claims, something like that in the project he was talking about. One of the things that often BIM is talked about on is that idea that you can reduce claims, that you can actually start to see, you know, it gives you the evidence, if you like. But you have to get everybody involved much earlier. So are you seeing more and more clients, contractors, subcontractors, subcontractors? Are you seeing, and the functions within them, getting involved much earlier now in that planning stage?
Absolutely. Actually, we lived the experience of leveraging BIM for claim management. And actually there was, so it was a step that made the client, the contractor and subcontractors avoid going to the court by seeing a scientific way of proving, and it is transparent. You know, part of the challenges we talked about was transparency. So it is a transparent tool that is, everybody is believing in that transparency. They can use it as a scientific proof of the right of each and every of the party of the supply chain. The client understands that he is paying exactly what he has to pay, and the contractor is receiving exactly what he is eligible to receive. So I think it is a very good way to reduce claims, reduce conflicts between the whole supply chain, if it is embarked and you know, if it is you know, believed by all the stakeholders.
And
so
of course,
yeah.
And of course, if it's used early, it's also an opportunity to identify things like potential clashes and etc.
Yeah, yes, true. In the midfield terminal building, we have used BIM to substantiate a big claim, and the client paid the claim, you know, with very satisfied that he is seeing and he is paying for what he believes it is the right of the contract.
Okay, final question. Actually, we have a question that's just come in, so let me ask you that. With reduced project durations, I find that a full BIM design seems to take a lot of time, with the models only being completed after construction has started. This voids the benefits of the planning benefits of BIM. How do you manage this? I mean, surely I would have thought that you actually want your models ready before, because you have to have them ready at that planning stage.
Exactly. This is a part of the misperception by a lot of the industry stakeholders. The problem of having BIM late in the project makes it, you know, it loses a lot of the value that it could do. So in all our projects, we do have our designs ready before the construction starts. At least you can have portion of the design that is about to start ready. So you can use it for clash detection, scope management, and so on, the handing over process. And as you go, you can build the rest. But you cannot start with a construction process without having at least something that you can use, and it is quality information that can substitute the absence of other traditional techniques. Otherwise, they will use traditional techniques, and you will lose the value of them.
Okay, yeah, paper instead of 3D models.
Exactly, something like this.
Okay, wonderful. Issam, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting, and good to see you really pushing the use of BIM. It's certainly, I know globally it's widely used. Here in the Middle East, it is used. It's definitely being used more, but it could definitely still be used even more.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much also for moderating this whole event. And thanks so much for organizing the event. Thank you so much.
And thank you. And thank you to all of our speakers. We have really appreciated your time today. A lot of very, very interesting presentations, which has been fantastic. We've certainly seen some interesting information coming through. We've talked about recently, just now, we've been talking about increased use of BIM, increased use of new technologies like digital twin, and how do you start to use those? How do you introduce more monitoring onto the site, and what are the benefits? The fact that a lot of the digitalization and a lot of the digital transformation that companies are going through now can introduce more tangible benefits, measurable benefits, where then you have less opportunity for, if you like, arguments between parties because the evidence is there. And certainly we heard earlier in the conference conversations about how do you bring your teams along, how do you make sure that people embrace it, that it's not a way of moving people to the door, but it's a way of, yes, you have to start thinking differently, but giving a path to the future. And of course, we had John's very interesting comments during his Q&A, where he really tried to talk about, again, how to think differently and how to relate that to construction and how it can be used in construction. So before I close, a final reminder about the competition that's being run for all attendees. By entering, you have a chance to win a lifetime user license for the estimating, planning and project control software Candy. I will put the slide up in a moment, and that will have not just the URL on it, which is ribccsfuturenow.com, but also the QR code if you want to access that way. There will also be a follow-up survey sent out to everybody. So please, we really do want your thoughts. We'd appreciate the feedback. We'd like to know what you've enjoyed, what you haven't maybe enjoyed so much. And if we do this again, what would you like to hear about? There will also be a recording or a link to this recording that will be sent out to all attendees. And with that, thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it useful, and goodbye.